Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Friday, November 17th, 2023 Nantucket Historical Commission meeting. Let me begin by taking a roll call of who we have. Have pretty much everyone in the room. Start off with Rita Carr and Abby Molina.
Hi, here.
Welcome. George Butterworth.
Here.
Okay. Limit Durkis.
Here.
We've got Tom up on the screen. Welcome. You might be muted. And we've got Nikki on the screen. In the room too. We have Holly Backus. Good to see you. And we have Mary Bergman visiting from MBT. Thank you for coming. And up on the screen, it looks like we've got Hillary Rayport. Welcome. Let's go ahead and begin the meeting. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, let's move on to the staff update.
All right. So last month I mentioned the proposed solar bill. That unfortunately was proposed at the state level in January. And myself, Stephen Welch, Vice Chair of the HDC, and Mary attended a Zoom meeting with the Legislative Director and Deputy General Counsel for Senator Sear, who has proposed this article. Personally, I think it went really well. The director was basically mentioned that this proposal predates his involvement with the senator's office. And he did realize after, I think, kind of was he's blaring with some fish punch in a way, was ready to kind of like lay down the law. He basically acknowledged the fact that there was no outreach, none whatsoever, especially to Nantucket. And he, I think after our conversation, he really appreciated Nantucket's continued efforts for solar, and understands the balance that we need to meet between historic preservation and renewable energy. And basically at the end, I think we just asked him to keep us abreast of what goes on. And I think we've got a little bit of sigh of relief that this is like the lowest priority on for them right now. But really wanted to have that engagement, the public engagement, specifically with our historic district, is very important. And I even mentioned if you're wanting facts, we can give it to you, but it seems like that this was very egregious and just not responsive to the facts. So I think that went well, and I did report to Libby, so she was aware of that meeting, and she was happy that it went well.
So Holly, with before it moves forward, do you think that there would be an outreach, or are we just going to have to keep an eye on it?
Well, I think both, but at the end of the day, this person is the highest staff level in his, realm, if you will. And it sounded like we got his word that he would keep us abreast on any changes, but it's definitely not a top priority is what we got out of it.
I think that the bill has only had one hearing as well, and it was very clear, I think, from that first hearing that there was a lot of work that needed to be done if that bill would even pass. That there's sort of an overreaching, it's one of these things, we're introducing the bill, is calling attention to the problem in other places, and that may be enough.
Yeah, I think so too.
So we talked about ways in which we could better work with the senator's office to promote the work that's happening on Nantucket, like invite them out to see some of the solar arrays that are getting approved in the historic district. And I thought that was a very heartening meeting.
Yes, it was a lot, a lot better than what I was expecting, quite frankly. I was happy. So, and I know town manager was happy that we had that meeting, and so
Great. And what about the demo delay on kids?
So that is, been submitted to our planning staff. And basically I'm putting it in from a, housekeeping perspective. Our internal sustainability group, that I'm a member of will be looking at it as well. Would like to have their support. Because if you really and truly look at the demo delay bylaw as it's written and its intentions for Nantucket, it was more from a sustainability perspective than anything else, but obviously we see the ramifications of it from a preservation perspective. And so, I think keeping it as a housekeeping perspective, for any changes to the bylaw is, where we're moving. So it will go through a review process, probably internally, and then with the planning board and all that stuff.
Does that look like something that we would be able to submit this year for the?
It's going to be on their list, yes, so, yes.
And when there's language put together, we'll see it.
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Excellent. What about the ongoing survey work? Yeah.
So. Oh, Hillary has her hand up.
Well,
Sorry.
it might not be something to ask right now, but I just wondered, so the warrant closes January 17th. So is it, Holly, can you tell us a little bit more about what is going to be proposed, or do you want to wait on that for a future meeting?
Well, I'd rather wait on that in a future meeting. I do
Okay.
need a draft. It's literally just been given to our planning staff. So,
Okay.
but yes, basically housekeeping perspective, cleaning it up, making it clear for the process, have to have COA in hand, those things that we have all acknowledged that are, basically have been issues.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's super helpful. Thanks. That's what I was curious about.
Yeah. Okay, so, you saw in the packet, we have formally submitted our 2024 letter of intent to MHC. And this would be for the downtown neighborhood area. I wanted to pull up, as you saw in the packet. With me for a second here. I want to. See what it looks like over there, okay. I'd like to kind of narrow down. We had a good boilerplate with our application. And the fourth one, I think it's a little easier now that we have a survey plan to go through, but this is the downtown commercial area. I kind of left it open as far as the downtown area actually encompasses specifically the sorry, I'm on the top of my head at the moment. It's the commercial downtown, the where'd it go? I have it here. Sorry. Commercial downtown, obviously fish lots, but that's crossed out because we're completed as of this current project, which is great. The Wesco acre lots, which is what you see in purple. And then it also includes waterfront south and waterfront north. Waterfront south is what you see a little bit in the pink, and waterfront north is the this kind of peach color, I guess, or tan. But we want to focus on this brown section, which is that commercial downtown. And then remember, the survey plan outlines how many properties meet their qualifications as far as being contributing. I want to say there's only like 3 infill properties within this area. And then the biggest aspect of this request is we're asking for more money. So instead of a $20,000 request, we're asking for a $30,000 request, which would be a $60,000 project. So that will probably allow us to dive into a little bit more than just this area of commercial downtown, but within maybe waterfront north. Kind of wanted to give that flexibility because having that flexibility within the request is helpful. And of course, all of these are top priority and high priority within the survey plan, which is easier for us too. I think that was one of the best things we could have ever done, was doing that survey plan.
Mhm.
So that's where we're at with that. It was due this week, and I received an email notification that they received it 10 o'clock on Wednesday, so that's in hand to MHC. So that's where we stand with that one. I think basically with having this in the packet for the commercial downtown area and the links to the survey plan, I'd really like, of course, we're not gonna find out for about a month or so whether or not we're gonna be chosen for the next round. Hopefully we are. And when we do get to that point, we're gonna be able to narrow down the specific properties within the downtown area. I would really like some assistance from the commission on what areas outside of the commercial downtown, so where in waterfront, we can pick and choose. Again, we're gonna go from 140 surveys, which is typical with the $40,000 project, to bump it up a little bit. I don't know, I'll be able to find out if we get to that point. How many is that gonna be additional? Maybe another 10, maybe another 20. I don't know what that number is, but it's definitely gonna be more than what this area is here. This will start let's diving into our old HDC 89 surveys that have never been introduced to Macris, which we know we have a nice, lovely filing cabinet system on that. So this will introduce another component of scanning if they're not already scanned in, because there was quite a bit that have been done over the years by HDC staff. Myself and Billy continue to do that on an ad hoc basis when we review like kind applications. But they're all, as we do it, they're scanned in. But nonetheless, the hard copies are always usually clearer, and that's probably what our consultants would want to have. So again, just if you can think about ones that are prudent to this next round when we get to that point, would be great.
So the next step with this, Holly, is that we will have a list like we have for the previous ones with the address and the date of the structure.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
What I plan on doing is creating the Excel spreadsheet like I did for the other ones,
Mhm.
but for this section first. So if there's other ones that we want to add in, again, look, there's a little bit not cut and dry because we don't know how many MHC has to tell us based on the amounting that they're proposing to give us how many surveys it's going to be.
Sure.
We also know there's that little bit of that Nantucket factor that we do need to, I guess accommodate, if you will. So I don't know from the 140 with the additional $20,000 what that's going to be, where we're at. Maybe it's 10 more, maybe it's 20 more, I don't know, but that's gonna be more than what's in this area here. Cause literally there's only 1, 2, I think 3 properties total out of this entire area that's non-contributing. Everything else is contributing, which is
Yeah.
great. That's great. That's a good thing. This is a high concentrated area.
And this is just the brown.
Yes, but the point is, the downtown area actually encompasses those other areas. There's 5 total. So that gives us room when we say we're gonna do the downtown area to start those areas. And again, we're kind of methodically, working. If you really look at the survey plan, it's a lot of the priorities listed encompass most of the downtown area. So we're good on those areas of choosing. There are areas that have outlined how many are in Macris, which are very nil. I think there might be 1. I think it might be the Athenaeum
It's, and Mrs. Apley's house.
and maybe the Pacific National Bank. And maybe the Pacific Club. So there might be those 3 that out of that area that are actually in Macris. All the others are not, but we know we have surveys. I see Tom's hand raised. Mr. Chair.
Please go ahead, Tom.
Holly, I think this is great. When you say, a lot of what's going on in this, as far as what we're trying to do here is in the brown, I also feel that there's, a great deal of what we're trying to do here in the purple.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than just take 10 or 20,000 and try to take some of that, I think it would be more prudent to wait and do what's in the purple, either all on its own or when we have more money available. I just don't think it's, I don't think it's, well, maybe it's not, but I mean, I like to hear what everybody else thinks. I think that just taking a little part of what's in that purple. I mean, there are so many houses in there. That's a great deal of the old historic district.
Absolutely, part of the crooked record.
Thanks for that, Tom. There were properties, so in the latest round, we're finishing up the fish lots, correct?
Yes, so. I guess I'll start into the rest of them. So fiscal 23 is going to be, I got the green light yesterday when I was home.
Could I just, sorry,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna recuse myself from the 23 discussion.
Sounds good, thank you. Abby will notate that for the minutes. As far as fiscal 23 year, we're gonna be re-advertising. We had 2 proponents that were non-responsive, so we need to re-advertise. I've been struggling for the past a while here, going between procurement and MHC on, okay, what's the track? How do we do this? All that kind of stuff. So anyway, I finally got the green light. I was okay with procurement and I need to get the green light with MHC. So MHC sent me the revised RFQ that will go out basically for Monday. And that will be out for a total of 21 days. We don't have to do it for the full 30 days. And then we'll be able to go, hopefully get some proposals that we can go through. We'll have our committee, we'll review, choose, and then that is going to be the fiscal 23 is the one that we wanted to do a lot of in the Grant Point area, but more towards like Jetty's Beach, that side of things. And more towards Easton Street. Okay, so we've kind of focused on that, and that does not include the infamous concerns that we've had for Easton Street. I think that's going to be, we need to go back to them, and I've notated those particular properties because of all the construction. So the one that we're at right now, which is fiscal 22, and I know it's confusing because they're behind a fiscal year where we are locally. Fiscal 22 is the most recent one, the ones that we're reviewing right now. And that is, yes, to finish the fish lots, done deal, as well as part of the, I think there was only 40 within the Grant Point area. So, and then think of the next project that we're gonna be getting out and starting. That's going to do a big chunk of the Grant Point area that hasn't been done. And then this new one, we're getting away from Grant Point and going towards the coral.
That's what I was getting at with the question about the fish lots was that will then return to the unfinished parts of Brant Point
Correct.
and then. Okay.
Yes.
And
And PAL has declined to do the latest.
They didn't submit for the last one. No,
But they could
they
submit for
could,
this
they
upcoming
could.
one.
Yep, they're still on the solicitation list from MHC.
Is there a
that
reason
they-
why that why they?
I.
No.
they missed a date.
Yeah, I mean,
Just the deadline, the
So you think they still want, I mean, they've done so
they've got
well for
interest,
us.
yeah.
that,
yeah. So there's a possibility
Okay,
they might
for the next one.
continue, yeah. And I do also think, looking at the numbers is important. When it comes to these federal grants that are allocated through the state, I'm learning that different departments, I always assume departments and within the state communicate with one another. No, they don't. Kind of very sometimes similar here too. So, their procurement processes, although they're similar, they're not. And, some are looking at Nantucket that, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money that you're requesting, while others are going, hey, you should ask for more. So it's very inconsistent. And so I think that's another aspect that really take in consideration, which I think we as a commission have really put that in our applications, our pre-applications, of saying we acknowledge that there is a budgeting process when it comes to coming to Nantucket and doing business on Nantucket, right? We all, I consider it the Nantucket factor. And when we bring that up to other kind of outside Nantucket realm, they don't understand what we're talking about. Well, you got a budget for if the boat doesn't run and where are you going to stay and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, I think that's helpful instead of looking at how much does this money give me, when a lot of the communities in the Commonwealth you can just drive to, where in Nantucket you can't. Case in point. So that's going to be helpful. And I think having the fact that Pal assisted us with the survey plan can give us some real new numbers as well
Mhm.
on that to help us move forward.
Yeah,
Just thinking about two things you said. One was, and I don't know if this is something to, in talking with MHC, is that our deeds are not digitized all the way back, and pretty much in many other counties are.
Yep.
I do think some little job security for us
Yeah.
in that, but it's also, and there is a reality of you do have to actually come here and see the place. One thing, when I look at just this plan, the downtown and the Wesco Acres lots in particular, I'm reminded that Betsy Tyler has already written a book about India Street, Huzzy
Yep.
Street, Quinn Street. But also knowing the limitations of what MHC is going to accept as far as grant or whatever, awarding the contract. Is there a possibility that the Historical Commission would work with, I know that Penn is applying for funding to do a survey, right, in was that Monomoy Acres lots, or?
That would be
West
West
Monomoy.
Monomoy.
So what if, and I don't know that they'd be interested, but in talking with, Betsy or other folks about applying for, say, CPC funding to survey the work that she's already done. Because I think that's,
Great idea.
is that a way to build on that work? And
Well, part of it is getting it into Macros form, which
Well, that's
Betsy
what I'm
has
saying,
done.
yeah.
Betsy's done a lot with
Yeah.
that, so that would be.
Yeah.
terrific.
So one of the greatest things I think of our survey plan is it outlines other
Yeah.
methodologies of doing this work,
Mhm.
right? So the survey plan calls for, in order for us to survey the entire island, more than what's been done outside or, within the two core districts. To have that public and private partnership to encourage other forms of survey work. So obviously, I always like to emphasize the fact, and I did with CPC, is that, it's a public and private partnership, and we, the town, cannot do this alone, A. B, every time, it's gone to trust, hiring and being able to get those every single time you guys do one, whether it's for a preservation restriction, and then we have our folks at Epsilon. Yes, I'll say it, people don't like to say the short-term rentals aspect, but people are able to apply for
Tax
historic tax
credits, yeah.
credits, and 9 times out of 10, yes, it's a short-term rental, but I see it as a win-win. Those properties are being preserved on the interior where the HDC doesn't have those jurisdiction, and they're creating Form B. So there's another form of survey work, which is necessary for us to be able to do this. So yes, being able to explain that here's this methodology that's been created within the survey plan, but there's other forms and mechanisms out there. And maybe we can take the 10 years and scrunch it down a little bit. But
So I guess that's my question, is the survey work doesn't just have to be completed via the
Nope,
MHC.
it does
right?
not. As a matter of fact, I think really with so I'm just gonna get into CPC. I guess I can dive into that right now, if that's okay.
sure.
It kind of all ties in together. So as you're aware, we, the town, through this commission and myself, jointly submitted an application with Penn, University of Florida, on 2 different projects. And they reviewed them on Halloween. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of had my little cape.
Costume?
Yeah, I had my
Oh,
cape
yeah.
on. I was like, I don't care. So, they did listen to it. There was a little apprehensive on part of one of the members on providing any money to the town, more for the Main Street project. And, the town is budgeting for the LiDAR technology, for the actual work itself, that, Penn is going to be, working on the joint CPC project that NPT and Penn did together for the streetscapes, and tie that in and for, Main Street and all the different initiatives for it. So, there was only one member that didn't vote on it. This was last week, I think, was their final. The first review was just to listen, the second review was to keep them in, and then the next review was to decide on whether or not they were actually gonna give. And then our survey work got a unanimous approval to move forward to the warrant, which is awesome. And I think that's gonna be a catalyst for us to use CPC, because that was my whole intention in the beginning with our survey plan. We need to look at other functions of funding for survey work, not necessarily all on the taxpayer and not all on the MHC funding, so.
Well, that's encouraging certainly about the survey work. So with the one dissenting, everything's still moving forward for Main Street.
As far as I know, from what I could tell, yep,
Great.
they still had it to move forward. So, good stuff. I think that is really gonna be eye-opening, because if you really think about it, the town of Nantucket, as far as I know, doesn't really apply for CPC funds. So maybe this will also show that, you know, hey, the town, you know, through this commission, through, you know, this, we
The town
can,
could preserve some of their historic buildings.
Right.
resources.
right, I mean,
Huge amounts of money being appropriated at the CPC.
yeah.
That was
Yeah.
that's been brought up.
They, you know, and on that note, I mean, the town knows, town leadership knows about, you know, the MMPF funding at the state level for municipalities, who own historic resources to apply for federal fund. I brought that to town's attention. And I think that would probably be something that's gonna be done down the road whenever, planning really gets moving forward with Jetty's Beach and Children's and, you know, I brought it up for all the other town-owned resources, and you see that in our survey plan. There's a reason why we have that list in there, so.
Hillary, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Excuse me. I would love an update from the folks that have really been seeing these surveys as they've been used, you know, because we've now finished a whole bunch of them with Holly's oversight. And just to see, like, how, you know, is what we hope would happen, how are they being used by the HTC? Is there anything that, you know, we should be adjusting in terms of how these are written, or any guidance to the consultant? I don't know. It just seems like it's been going on long enough that we could find out how it's going and if there's any learning or any changes. So if it's appropriate to have a conversation like that, I just want to ask the question.
Thanks, Hillary. I think as soon as they were made available, they've been used. Holly, you could probably.
Yeah,
Feeling better,
actually,
but-
as soon as we receive drafts, I pretty much have them available, at least through me. But yeah, the people are being able to access them. Sorry, I was gonna try to get to them. People are able to access them now that they're available on the town's GIS. And thanks to our GIS coordinator, Nathan, he was able to realize that there was a disconnect between the map geo and MHC's layer. And long story short, the ones that we had officially approved by MHC in the fish lots in November of last year, that's when they gave their official blue stamp on them at the bottom, were not being shown through our GIS. So Nathan was able to find out from them what was going on, and they were able to fix the problem. I think, Hillary, you'll find that through our review, which we need to provide comments on this last batch that we just received to PAL. We've been finding some consistent concerns, but they're obviously they're minor in nature, and they'll fix them. It's more or less terminologies, word choices that are related to Nantucket. Type 2 cat picket fence instead of a modern fence. Those type of things that are outlined in building with Nantucket in mind. That vocabulary vernacular is very important. So I hope that helps. I am providing them when I know there's a draft, or I know we had one approved. So I'm giving them to the people, the agent applicant. People are now being able to find them on the town's website now that the link is there. So yeah, they're readily available, the ones that have been approved by MHC.
That's great, Holly. Do you think that, especially if we're prioritized, it sounds like the next area to be prioritized is the downtown, where there were a lot of mid-century changes. Well, I don't know a lot. I shouldn't use a term like that. There were mid-century changes as Beinecke, and others sort of started building these revivalist preservation period structures, which, like I'm thinking specifically of the small building that's across from the Athenaeum on India Street, like behind the post office, that has come under development pressure, but it's not really, some of these buildings are reconstructions. Do you think that as you move into surveying this area, is there any kind of beefing up of the philosophy or the messaging around the time period and the cultural resource to support the consultant? Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm asking? Sorry, I know it's a little complicated.
Kind of, I think. I mean, I think where the biggest buy-in is needed, and we all know what our National Historic Landmark designation says, right? And we know that our national history and our local history are one and the same. They're not two different things. It's that mindset. Sorry, it's true. I mean, that there is sometimes this mindset that they're separate, and they're not. We know that it's not. And I think that you're seeing a little bit of a change there to people grasping the NHL. Honestly, I do think when the NHL update was done in 2012 from a CPC grant that NPT got to hire Brian and people to, I don't know, I forgot the other lady's name that assisted. I should, sorry, my apologies on that, but that document is so imperative to actually outline what is our contributing status, why we are, prevalent than just the whaling area. And to kind of answer your question there, Hillary, that's being acknowledged more by the people that I think are listening to myself, to MPT, when it comes to, these deliberations and review processes at the HDC. So I do think that it's not lost with our consultants. I think Pal has done an excellent job. Even so, I think you even remarked on it, on the work of Beinecke in general, that they even beefed up the history of Beinecke within our survey plan history, which is based on the NHL update. So yes, I think that is helpful. And I think they're also annotating when additions were done on, say it's a typical Nantucket built in, right at 1800, say, and they did additions in 1880, and then in 1950, even those 1950s additions are contributing, and that mindset is being understood more. And I think that's helpful. Because
Absolutely.
It's an evolution of the building. And I don't know, I do think at the end of the day, I do think that that's being stuck, if you will.
That's terrific. Thank you, Holly.
That might be something to talk to the NHA about, like how they could help us with that public outreach about the 20th century history.
Yep.
I'm just thinking the exhibit they did.
Yes.
Sort of touched on, or, started to talk about that. And I think Niles is interested in, as I volunteer him for this. But is that the sort of thing we could do? I've always joked with Nat Philbrook, like, could you please write a book about something that happened in the 20th century? Because that's the time that nobody really understands on Nantucket. But, what could this commission do as sort of public outreach of drawing attention? I don't know, is that something that Chamber would be interested in?
Right.
Because they're in one of those buildings. And
well, I have a comment about that, because we're actually coming up on the 75th anniversary of the HDC. 2025. And which, that could be something to put in our sites or to get some partnerships with, because that anniversary allows us to talk about what happened in 1955. And that's when all of that revivalist building was starting to happen. And those are the buildings that we're trying to get recognized more than they are. So could be something to think about. It's coming up.
Yeah, it's acknowledging those buildings that were built outside the whaling era, really and truly, we're getting people to understand. And I do see a shift in that acknowledgement. And to the question about whether or not the HDC survey, the new Form Bs are being, utilized. 6 Fair Street, I think, is a good example of a structure that we were all concerned on. We utilized it as a threat within the pilot program, right, that was done first. And it was recently sold and fortunately, basically being brought back to life with some changes. It's not being demolished, and I will tell you, I had quite a bit of inquiries from some local attorneys of people that were wanting to, clients who wanted to purchase it, and what was their first question? What to demo? So there's something that I think is a win-win right there. We had it surveyed, with its obviously current condition, but the history, that social and architectural history that was not indicated. And then now we have new owners that are actually gonna bring it back to life, so it's a great.
That is a perfect story. I mean, that is exactly what we hoped, and that attorneys are calling you, Holly, and saying, so do you think this is a candidate for demo? And then you can point to a document from the Historical Commission saying, you know, this is what you need to consider. Obviously, we can't tell you yes or no, but this is what you need to consider. I mean, that is absolutely the intention of these surveys. So that's fantastic to hear.
Fortunately, I was able to have that conversation before we had the survey.
Oh, yeah.
So it just emphasized it. Just happy that it was good stewards, I think, that have purchased that structure. So, but as far as CPC goes, that definitely, I think this joint partnership with PIN and looking at the West Monomoy area, which has such a diverse and cultural history, some of them that have been lost. Right, we know that there's a lot of structures that are not there anymore, and we want to be able to tell that history. And thankfully, there's a great partnership with the African Meeting House in the Boston affiliate, as well as NHA, and they're going to be doing the large heavy lifting, if you will, that real recognizance survey of the area that's going to help formulate for the Form Bs in a later effort. So I think we should definitely keep CPC applications moving forward in our back pocket.
We've done a lot of sort of drifting through all the survey work, and I would like to hear from the commissioners about first about this downtown neighborhood group, what your ideas are about, we can do everything in that downtown commercial, as Holly was saying, but then they're going to be extras, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. Thank you, Tom, for already sharing about Wesco. Anyone else have thoughts about the?
Tom,
Could I elaborate just for 2 seconds about that?
Sure, go ahead.
If we're gonna get, I should have said this at this time, I'm sorry. If we're gonna have another $10,000 or $20,000 in this, and I'm not sure we are, but why wouldn't we just continue down on Brant Point and try and get as much of that done before we start something else?
So if I may,
Sure.
Chair, Tom, that's what this current fiscal 23 that hasn't gotten off the ground yet.
Yeah.
Is gonna be doing. There's a big, and that one was, I believe I have provided the list that came up for that. But I will email that to the commission so you all have it. That's gonna be going out in the RFQ. That'll be reposted next week.
Okay,
List.
thank
And
you.
you'll see those properties that we, because remember, even though we had to come up with some arbitrary, as you probably remember, Tom, when we were creating the boundaries.
Yep.
We're like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense to be named this, and in the town section was kind of hard, but we had to use the roads as the boundaries.
That's
Yes.
exactly where I was going with this,
Yep.
because when you get that boundary and you get up, if you get everything done on the low ground below the bluff, and then we go up there on Cliff Road, and then you can start coming back into town, that's
Yep.
where it's really gonna get serious.
Yep. Definitely. If we could, so as far as this current project that we're in, fiscal 22, we currently have, what was it? How many surveys did I send you guys? there's quite a few, about a dozen or so. We're gonna receive another batch in January. So just keep that on your radar. As soon as that email comes in, I will send it to you. But we really want to provide these comments to PAL when we can. And this section is mostly fish lots. The one that we're gonna receive in January is the remaining fish lots that they had to come to the island because they had to go back to the deeds. Because again, oh, Mickey's got his hand raised.
Mickey, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna add to what Tom had been talking about earlier, and I guess what you were asking, if there's extra funds for the available after doing the downtown area, where do we go next to use those up? And it, you know, in the map, if you could put that map on the screen, Holly, of the
Yeah.
purple and the brown. So the purple borders, you know, there's purple on one side of Center Street and brown on the other, and Center Street's a pretty critical street. So I would say that the next place to go might be just the borderline, you know, those fringe houses in the purple that are abutting the brown, you know, on Center.
Okay, yep, along the boundary,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's the street you abut that matters rather than, you
Oh,
know,
yes.
the street being the border.
Right, we've kind of brought that up when we're talking about Main Street in general.
We
You
just
know,
had to draw the line
we
somewhere.
had to draw this line somewhere, right? But being able to annotate whether or not it's part, like, for instance, Main Street should be its own thing, but we had to use the road as, because at the end of the day, when you know, you weren't with us when we were creating this, but PAL really, when they were assisting us creating the boundaries, had to bring it down and say, we need to have not only areas that make sense, but also tangible areas. So we had this large downtown area and they're like, no, we need to cut it down. So I was cutting it based on, obviously the fish lots laid out in 1717. Then you've got Westco acre lots, what, 1748, I think. You know, all these areas, and you have the Cricket Record, the gardeners, and that, you know, those were laid out specifically, not organically. They were actually, you know,
And they
Flatted out.
go street to street, not bordering the streets.
yes and no.
Is there any
But
way you
trying
could
to use
get that
this-
purple map up? That Mickey was looking
Yes.
for?
Yeah, hold on, see if I can get to that.
George, the tricky part was that you couldn't have it sort of go along the back.
Right,
The
I
property
know.
along,
Yeah,
you know, it was just, was
some,
too sort
and
of
some of the lots might be really,
sawtooth.
some of them might be deep.
Hold
Right.
on, it's gonna take me a minute, I need to go. I don't like.
And the
Chrome.
idea is that, you know, when you do a section,
Mary,
it's not
what
gonna
was
be
the name
too
of your
long
house?
before you
You
do
said
the other
house
side of the
that was
street.
downtown.
If not
I
at the
didn't-
same
you said-
time, the
you
next
mentioned,
one
like, the
or.
Pacific Club, the Athens.
Oh, 69 Main Street, there's a survey. For, or Form B, yeah.
Thank you, I wanted to put in the note. but
And there's a lot of current surveys. There's ones that have, we know, preservation restrictions associated with them. There's ones that have, that are not even on macro stuff to begin with. right here.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is, this will show you how to get, if you all don't know how to get to it yet. The
Holly, are you sharing your screen?
oh, yeah, well, let me,
Step
thank you for
one,
that.
Step
Step
one,
one.
Mickey said.
All right, so I'm on the town's website. Here's the historical commission's agenda page. And moving you guys over for a second. This preservation planning page. We have the joint CPC, it should be in here somewhere, right here. The CPC PIN MPT project, which was the Nantucket Cultural Resource Map. This is available to the public. Had it on the town's website a couple years ago, bless you. And it disappeared, so I had them put it back in this spot. So here is another source, that's not really what I wanted, but this, I wanted people to realize that everything that has the dark building outline has some sort of history. Okay, we know what this building is. Easy enough.
Well,
got a
so what
little bit
I
of-
was looking for, and I think Mickey was for, so we could talk more about that purple area as it goes into the brown,
Yeah,
so we can see what's going on. I think that's just part of the agenda stuff, isn't it?
Mhm.
yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have that full map.
Would that map that you just pulled up be
Mhm.
useful to just follow along Center Street?
Yeah.
And go west, because that would be the purple area.
You mean the cultural resource one that I had?
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought I had the
Mickey,
link.
would that be helpful?
Well, the agenda has the abbreviated piece of the map. I think that would be suffice for the.
Oh, just all the purple that we could see out of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't have that. I just did a
Well, it wasn't a
screen
agenda.
shot of it. It's their
Yeah, right
PAL's,
there.
It
Perfect.
is.
yeah, so this is PAL's working map. And I thought I had the actual link to get to it. It's not a shareable one, obviously internally with us, but, so basically what you're saying is flanking Center Street, you would want to go on the other side.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a
Everything on the
starting
west
point.
Side of Center Street.
I like that idea.
Mhm.
That's a good idea.
I do too.
Good.
Good idea, Tom.
Good
I love
idea, Tom.
I
No,
just
it's
like
a good idea.
Mickey's idea.
compartmentalizing. You can just say, done.
Both
check
of
this
you.
line,
It's an awesome
done.
idea. I like it.
Downtown, done.
Mhm.
we
And
can have
that's direction because, once, again, the beauty of what PAL has done is they've already in the survey plan outlined how many contributing are in this commercial downtown.
Mhm.
There's only like 3 that are not, so it's a lot. And based on what MHC says, when they come back and say, based on that amount, that's gonna give you X amount. Hopefully it's more than what we've been doing, which is about averaging 140 forms. This will be able to add those in. And again, I've always tried to, the last, RFQs, give more than the minimum, so that way there's a choice. The consultant can choose.
Well, also, what's so important is a streetscape. So
Absolutely,
you've got Center Street, you need both sides of Center.
I like that. And maybe it's something to think about, maybe even onto, I think both Rita and Mary's point, they've brought up in the past about Main Street. And maybe it's the same thing by looking at the other side of the northern part of Main Street of that section. Cause this goes all the way to Lily and Gardner, that it's a, that chunk.
I don't know if it's accurate or not, but just on a rough count, all what's west of Center Street there, right at the beginning, right at just the front of it. I think it's like 23 or 24 individual lots there. The
Mhm.
long one, the big one there, right there, that's the congregation.
Church.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited about this area, really. I would think everybody is. There's a lot of history, and then that last website I showed you from that CPC project that Penn and MPT did for the interiors project, there's a lot of information that is in there that's helpful. I will say that I have noticed a couple of discrepancies, but for the most part,
It's still out of date,
it's not
unfortunately.
there are things that need to be updated. Yes, I agree. But for the most part, it's got substantial information. Basically, if you know a piece of property is also surveyed at Library of Congress, links there as well. You don't have to go searching at the Library of Congress. It's right there. So it's helpful from that regard. And there's a lot of photos that they've been able to acquire from when properties were put on the MLS listings being sold, which also gives a little bit of history into what people were actually advertising appropriately or not, hence NARAB. So anyway, all of that stuff is tied together. But I think, so if I may, Mr. Chair, sounds like the direction is to go with the commercial downtown and then anything left over to flank the other side of Center Street in the purple.
Mhm.
I like it. Thank you. I like that direction.
If there are any buildings that we sort of see, that are conceivably threatened for the next couple of, or few years, we can sort of cherry pick around, in the other parts of the downtown, including north.
When you say the commercial downtown, are you including the sort of the tan section there too?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the cool things that PAL did when they helped us create our neighborhoods, our 59 neighborhoods, they also did geographic areas. So when I put in the letter of intent, I just did downtown, but I included all those not subdivisions, but neighborhoods that are included within the downtown area based on their overall segmenting the entire island into different areas. So that is helpful. I didn't want to limit our, what we want to do.
Well, but could I clarify? Because Mickey, I think because the tan, that's not the commercial that's part of the downtown neighborhood group, but that's the waterfront.
This is
north,
waterfront
right?
north.
So that
right
would
here.
not be,
No, that's included.
well, so it's part of the, but like,
Downtown.
but what we were just discussing, like the brown and the purple.
Correct. So if you zoom in, I'm gonna zoom in here now.
So all of that is downtown, but only one of them is called downtown commercial. And
Correct.
adjacent to that, to the west is
Correct.
Wesco and to the right is North Harbor.
Wow.
So,
And
yes, so
yeah.
see how they've divided, we've got central west, which makes no sense, but whatever. South, north, central, north. They took downtown and created those, basically what we all consider downtown, and we divided it into those tangible neighborhoods. And instead of locking us into just commercial downtown, it's been requested for all of downtown, so we can pick from those neighborhoods. So that does include fish lots, Wesco acre lots, commercial downtown, waterfront north and waterfront south. This all area is considered downtown based on their plan.
I have a question about contributing structures. Do we consider replicas a contributing structure? Say, I know Nantucket Hotel is just outside the district we're talking about, it's on the other side of Easton.
Mhm.
But the two new buildings that they built are replicas of what was there before that burned down.
Right?
And do we consider those to be contributing? Because it,
Not if it's a replica, it contributes to the character and setting of the historic district. It's definitely not an eyesore, but they wouldn't be a contributing structure because it wasn't built within the time frame between 1659 and 1975.
Yeah.
And always have to say with the caveat, not everything in 1975 is contributing. But yeah, no, that's a good question. However, the main structure of the Nantucket Hotel actually received historic tax credits from the state. So, I would say that we would want to have that updated. That would be on the list to be updated. Which I think it is actually, this last one. Just put it in there. So, no, I like this direction because I think this is kind of overwhelming.
it's a lot, and this is the most complicated
Yes.
of the island.
And I think, based on what we all have agreed and why we put it in the survey plan that way, it's one of the top priorities.
So I was on the 5-member committee that broke the island up into what we see there with the brown boundaries. And that dotted square area is what we saved for last because it was the most confusing and complicated part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it a couple of times. Holly's mentioned a few things. We had 2 or 3 meetings about how to handle that. And it's so many houses, and that's really, the survey is going to go mental once we get inside that little dotted circle, the little dotted square there, because that is the predominant amount of the houses that we're really surveying on this island.
Yeah, and
Very
there's
complicated area, very.
this area alone.
what's the dotted square?
I don't see the dotted.
The
spot.
square he was looking at was actually, I brought it up closer.
This is the dotted square.
Yeah,
Which
Oh.
is,
But it's dotted on the larger map.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, and it's kind of fuzzy now. The more I get into it. Let's not your eyes, but to Tom's point, when we're doing that, this area, if you can see here, was what we were considering, okay, that's cliff. Because when you drive a cliff, right, you've got it on one side and the other, you're being flanked by it. Well, that was when Powell was like, okay, well, you need to break these up into more tangible neighborhood areas. And we're like, oh, okay.
Real estate agents would love these.
And, you know, again, what we've done, is, on the piggybacks of what, we had to do from a, software perspective with, Intergov, our permitting software. They had to create arbitrary kind of neighborhoods, and they utilized some of the civic leagues areas, but we had to go further and divide it into tangible areas, so.
George, you see this, the square in the larger map?
Yeah, here's the square.
Oh,
So this
okay, so
is
it's
basically
like
that.
all of historic town.
And again, remember, this is to get outside of just the core 55 districts. This is to do everything. Because there's a lot. So, cool.
Did any of the commissioners have comments that they want to bring up that weren't already mailed to Holly? Or edits?
Yeah, so if you haven't, I would really like to get comments to them at least by after Thanksgiving, if that, the beginning of December. That would be great.
If you could send me that.
Yes,
email
I can,
again,
I'll resend the email.
Then I could separate it.
Send
It's
email.
also in the packet.
Yeah, but I didn't, for some reason, it didn't come up for me.
I didn't, okay.
So,
So these are there's Silver, Charter, Jefferson, Pine, Lion. A lot of them are on Pine. But there's a good amount here. I think one thing we've all talked about before is our setting. They've kind of beefed the setting section up for Nantucket, and not just, a one-liner, if you will, taking into consideration the streetscape. Based on NHC's documents of our sidewalks, streets, that setting, as well as the fences, and again, that's been one of our overarching comments. Any of the additions, the roofs, that was another thing that's unique to Nantucket. We said we always recognize when roofs are changed, that we have a like-kind process. And people change their roofs from asphalt to wood, or wood back to, to asphalt all the time. And so that was something I had to, request MHC to acknowledge, and they did, which is good. So that's kind of a boilerplate, if you will. But yeah, no, these are pretty good. Of course, there's the boilerplate history. Photos, I think photos are ones, like for instance, this one, there's probably a historic photo with an NHA of the structure. That, that's one thing that I'll be doing, is try to make sure that if there's any photos that need to be added. So yeah.
Clement,
Mhm.
to pull this up,
Mhm.
if you go to the email from Holly of November 2nd,
Okay, great.
there's her email, and then, the email before that is a link from Powell. But I find that there's the link at the bottom of the Powell letter.
Oh, okay.
But where I was able to get it was tapping on the link at the bottom
Oh,
of the
the link
page
is,
of
but that's
Powell's.
still Powell
And then
email.
that just pops up rather than going to something that then you have to download and
Maybe not.
maybe not download. I found it was a problem for me in that upper
Okay,
link.
so I
as
have to
well.
get to that Powell email and then look for the date.
Go to the bottom.
Oh, yeah, cook. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. One thing that I've been trying to keep track of, I think is pretty cool, when one Form B references another house that has that's already documented in Macris. And if it's not, that it should be, you know, outlined as something that's future. So that's why you see, you know, a lot of these underlines, and the house names. Connecting the people, I think, too, because we know there's a lot of, Charles H. Robinson, we know there's a lot of, John B. Nicholson, would be really cool, and I'm just like, you know, one of those crazy people, but
We all
to
are.
be able to, no, I do, because Lancaster did that. Lancaster did a list
Well,
of, do you think we could?
I'm
So
looking
like
at
the
Mac,
builders that
Yeah.
have the different
Yes.
sides of the houses,
Yes.
that would be a cool map.
so in Macris right now on Nantucket, there's only 3 builders, one is Bam Lafarge.
Really? Come on, that's funny.
So,
That's the-
but
we're
that
talking
is, in theory, yes, we should be able to get
That's my
architect
husband's
maker
family's
there.
house.
Well, I'm swimming.
The Lafarge, family bought it from my
Oh, wow.
husband's family.
Yeah, so it might have had, probably because it was the 89 survey, it was not the architect, rather the owner.
Yeah,
But that seems like something we could like.
that would be, so
Is that-
yeah, stuff like that. If we see some of those, we're gonna see those overlapping things in these surveys. I know we probably don't want to go through all of these, but I did want to point out too that I've been, if you know a name of these house, not the people name, but if you know that this, you know, we all have quarter boards, which is unique to Nantucket. If we know that there's a name that this building has always been called, let's include that on the Form B. If we're aware, we've done that on some on Brant Point. Let's continue doing that, because that's part of its history too.
Which isn't always what is on the court board now.
Right,
Yeah, exactly.
correct. So that for
It just have
me,
to be
I
some
think is
tidbit.
history that they might not necessarily be able to provide from previous documentation. It's unless, you know, somebody like NPT or PIN have put it in their reports, if they are available, but I think that's helpful. And then for the most part, I mean, this section and then the next batch are gonna complete the fish lots. And then I believe once this fiscal 22 project is done, like we did with the pilot, we're gonna be receiving a map of showing where all those points are. So it will show all the properties in the fish lots that have been surveyed.
I think it's so helpful to have the oldest possible photos available.
Yes,
With these, and I didn't see really any. In fact, the one that you just had pulled up, the one that was a garage. I think I sent you a picture. It was just from the listing, but at least showing, you know, that it was a garage before. It's just nice to see as far as massing and detail, I think for the HDC,
yes.
is just a point of reference.
There have been, one of my main comments to Ginny has been, if we can utilize any of the old photos from the 89 effort, if
Right.
they're available, whether it was through already on Macris or if it was from ones that we have in the system that just never got to the state. What case in point, there was one out in Sconset, that recently came to the HDC. This is the one, that we've probably all thought was going to go crunch, crunch, bye-bye, as my father-in-law likes to call it. Unfortunately, it's the, old the old Yarmy bungalow right there on the corner of West Sankaty, and you know what I'm talking about. And it just recently, the last few months, came to the HDC, and they're actually gonna bring it back to life, pretty much. And I was looking at the old 88, 89 survey, which is not on Macris. But the photo is of the facade is a little bit different the way that it is now. And from my point is, if we have the benefit of Sconset Trust doing more surveys, or when we ever get to Sconset or do more of Sconset, that would be one where I would really want to, because I included it for the HDC. So here's an old survey that shows X. The one that's right on the corner, right across from the school.
Oh, right across from school.
The
The corner
bungalows,
of the-
right there. Yeah, yes, thank you.
Across
Yes,
from the fire station.
yes. Well, it was a school first.
Yes.
Then it was the fire
My
station.
Yes.
my mother went to that school.
My grandmother-in-law went to that school. Gave me a tour too. But yes, basically my point is, yes, I've explained
I
that
know,
to,
there is no wax, we haven't seen that. have we?
No.
Oh,
They did.
I think
Oh, I
maybe
know.
you're talking.
Holly, I now
across
know
it
what building.
Rather than across what's saying.
Yes.
Oh, across.
the
the road.
bungalow. Like if you're right at that stop sign, the
Yes.
bungalow right there, it's been
The-
sitting kind of
The
vacant and all that.
northwest corner.
Yeah.
Right next
Yes.
to Esther Swain's house.
Thank you. Yes, it was Yarmy then Swain, yes.
How do you
You're
spell
right.
Yarmy?
Yarmy.
Okay, that's how I spelled it. I was thinking.
Perfect. And, I think that's gonna be brought back to life, which I'm very excited about. I digress, but I think it's important because having these,
Catacorn.
old photos included are important as Angus had mentioned, having these older photos and try, why not utilize even the 80s? Have that in there. So. I think.
That's not on the
we're good
trust.
on that one.
That's not even on the trust list.
Oh, okay. Those little bungalows all along, yeah.
Those are great.
And so, and that brings a good point. So I'm always stressing about the public and private partnership. And it would probably be helpful because Sconset, it's a vast area. We did
No,
not change
it's a
the
huge-
boundary.
No, it's-
It's the same boundary as indicated in the master plan. Same that the Civic League uses for, so basically it's it. But we also know how diverse it is and there's different areas and neighborhoods. And maybe that's something with working with you, with your double hat of being on the commission and Wisconsin Trust on figuring out when we get out, when this commission gets out to that area, what would be helpful to working together? What would be the areas that Wisconsin Trust would normally want to work on versus what we should be working on? And I
Well,
think
we
that
have
would be helpful.
built in Wisconsin mine.
Yes, which has been,
Michael has divided everything into.
and maybe that's something I can bring up when I meet with your executive directors.
Yes,
Yes.
because I am out.
So, no, very, very excited about that.
Yeah, good.
I think,
You will like.
yes, I had the opportunity to meet with her once, but I'll be able to sit down with her. I think having that, because I'm always trying to emphasize to the town, we cannot do this alone. This is not, yes, the town is obligated to make sure our historic cultural resources are surveyed, and that's what we're doing. That's what this whole effort has been. But there is a partnership that there's expertise, there's knowledge, and there's time too that is
And
helpful.
money.
And money. But if we can acquire additional money, speaking of that, money, who wants to get into the next topic?
The community wind fund.
Yes.
Oh,
On that, yeah.
Nantucket Offshore Wind Community Fund. So there's an application deadline of January 31st.
Yeah, so it's funding, from that comes out of the Good Neighbor Agreement with Vineyard Wind. They've made the first payment available on that, and so there's 3 pots of money, the largest of which is designated for town of Nantucket projects, which we as a commission could potentially apply for if there were something of interest. My immediate thought was, the sub-grant program that we've talked about, but it's not eligible because funding from the community wind fund can't be used to be dispersed to other recipients from the initial recipient. But it's just something to keep in mind. We could discuss further at the December meeting, but
Do you think we could, see if we could get money to set up the program, so the money would be just for like getting the consultant and like getting the infrastructure and not the actual sub-grant itself? Because I think we had talked about the actual sub-grant, we'd look to apply to one of the other programs, like the federal or the state one, so that the money, like I hear what you're saying, they don't wanna do that, but maybe they could help us create it. I don't know, it's worth asking.
certainly
It's-
looking into it.
When it comes more and more about the revolving, it almost seems like we need to find somebody that has a
Mhm.
Yeah.
generous donation that can go, here's your seed to start.
Yeah,
For it to
For it to, and then we
come
could
from
use
the
that to
town.
help assist apply for the federal funding
yeah.
to create it. And we know that places have done it, it's just having that initial amount of money in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's the problem is really getting the initial seed funded.
I had one thought back to that idea of the 25th anniversary of the HDC. I mean, this commission had wanted to have people were working on an exhibit. I was working on the exhibit too, and it was just too much. It just, we couldn't get it off the ground. I had to leave the project because of things going on, and other folks left the project too. But creating an exhibit is something that somebody could be hired to do. I mean, there are consultants that are experts. All they do is create museum exhibits. I still think the idea has a lot of attraction in terms of education and deepening the research about the Historic District Commission, and would also help the HDC educate themselves about themselves. Seems like that might be a good grant target.
That's a great idea, Hillary. Thank you. I was going to ask, Rita, what are the categories? Like,
Yeah,
what
the
falls
three
under the
piles.
umbrella
Yeah.
of this? Like, what is eligible?
You got it?
Oh, no, I mean, I can, it's essentially historic preservation, coastal resiliency and climate change mitigation project are sort of, do I have that right, Mary? The three, umbrella
They
categories.
actually had it into 4.
Oh.
In my understanding, you can pick
Oh, yeah, the application.
on the application. Yeah, on the application, it
You
says,
just have to qualify for one.
yeah, to support and promote renewable energy development, to combat the effects of global climate change, to enhance coastal resiliency, and to protect, restore, and preserve cultural and historic resources. So, pretty cool, because, you know, think about it, Nantucket, we do a lot of those together.
Right.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
Some of them will check more than one.
Yes.
box.
yeah, yep.
Maybe we could include that in the next packet.
The application, more information.
Right, or, yes, that information.
Since it's so new, no one kind of gets a feeling for what they're specifically looking for. Since it's brand new.
Mhm.
Any other comments on community fund? Wind? No?
We had talked about this and I wonder if maybe we just need to develop the idea more, but Polly, I know we had talked about trying to like work on creating something that talks about coastal resiliency and historic preservation. So maybe if we were able to use the funds, because we had talked about like trying to like be more formal about it, like getting a document, like having it on the website. I don't know if maybe that would be an idea, because I think it's okay if it hits more than one box, but I think it was just something, you know, we had talked about this summer with partnering with like NHA and, you know, I don't know if you guys think that maybe that would be a good idea for us to see if we could pursue something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I was still kind of not 100% keen on or what UPenn and NHA were really wanting to do. Obviously they want the town to be involved, but in it, you know, in addition to what we have already created, our resilient Nantucket design guidelines, getting the information out there about being resilient with the CRP that was approved by the town. I'm, you know, what exactly are the additional things they're looking at? I know with UPenn's project, they were looking at more of a materials perspective on what materials do what with certain weather conditions. You know, maybe just indulging them a little bit further on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it even would have to be big, but maybe it's a little bit of like research, just trying to like, you know, so that we get something, but I mean, it just might be worthy. And since it hits to the boxes. we
Yeah,
might be
no,
likely to get some money.
It does, it does. Looking at the application, I mean, which I know, has been something that's been worked on for quite a while. to get it right. There's, you can't just, you gotta really think about how and what the money's gonna be going for and what that entails, which I think is good. I mean, I think at the end of the day, politics and people's opinions aside, there's a lot of, thought and work into the community fund. And that the mitigation money was not just going into, say, the general fund and in one giant pot, because at the end of the day, our cultural resources is the whole reason why we're involved in to begin with, under the National Historic Preservation Act. So I think that, in my opinion, would be if this commission wanted to promote anything to do with the offshore wind community fund at all, it would be emphasizing the reason why we're here.
Yeah.
That would be the biggest part.
Mhm.
And I don't want people to get lost in it, lost at that site.
I think that's the key, is using this money for something that nothing else is being allotted for. So that you're not taking away from what it could be used for, that there are definitely resources put forth for it, so. Yeah.
Just for anybody watching this who doesn't know, I am on the advisory committee of the, we have a meeting today. I'm not leaving this area for the next 4 hours, but anyway, I think that because this is such a new fund opportunity, I'm hearing, don't reject yourself. Go in with what you think is gonna be a good idea, but I wouldn't say, because nothing has been awarded yet, so, I think that's an opportunity but I think Angus is right, and I know one thing that the application does ask is what other funding sources are there out there. So I think something that could be funded by the CPC is potentially gonna not be looked at as favorably as something that could not be, but at the same time, there are advantages to this grant over, that the CPC doesn't have. Chiefly, you'll be getting the money first. The CPC, I think it's a real challenge for smaller nonprofits that you have to, it's reimbursable. So this is, I know the town doesn't necessarily have that same sort of problem. But the idea of, sort of, what you're saying as far as the exhibit, I think that's something to think about.
Yeah.
What is this, is this committee have things they want to print? Sort of what kind of public outreach? I think Holly's right on the money.
What about our video that we?
Yeah.
That we could do,
Education.
the educational video
Educational
might be a good
component.
idea, the one that we had talked about. Trying to, we haven't finalized it, and it might be a good way to actually get it going where we have money. Is we wanted to do a video that really emphasized building with Nantucket in mind, but like modernize it, create some snippets, and then we could put it on the website. This might be a good opportunity because obviously there isn't a video yet. And like, there is the document building with Nantucket in mind, but we could say we really want to make it more interactive, prescriptive, and like add to it. Like that might be a good place for us to try to get some money for that.
Yeah.
So what about a threatened historic structure? Is that the kind of thing that those funds could be used for purchase and restoration of, rehabilitation of?
That's something we're talking
I'm
about today.
thinking
actually.
like a wood box situation,
Well, you could spend all of that money and you wouldn't be able to buy the one.
Well, I'm just saying,
But,
a building that
yeah.
is, threatened, is that in the realm of possibility?
I could have an answer for you by the next meeting, but I know that's one thing I wanted to discuss was, my guess would be acquisition of buildings would not be allowed, but.
It's just something is $6 million, you just can't.
The first payment was only 4 million.
Yeah, the first, I thought it was 2.
Well, it ended up being 2.5 after, the lawyers had released their fees. But, I would agree that my guess is they would probably prohibit the acquisition of structures, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna, well, I say I'll have clarity on that, yeah.
Something to think about.
And I also think it's for the reasons Mary was saying, it's also exciting for, that we as commissioners can help spread the word and encourage, people who might not have heard about it to look into it to apply.
Yeah,
Because there's money available to, obviously outside.
And this is, I assume this is, I mean, it's public money, but could be going to a single individual. I don't know how that, I mean, another thing we were talking about was the fund. If people are having trouble redoing their house at the appropriate level, a historic house, could they turn to something? And that's once again a single structure, but it's not buying the whole thing. It's
Yeah,
helping.
I don't have, again, I still
Yeah,
don't,
yeah,
I don't have
yeah.
an answer on that one, that is what we're talking about today. But, one thing that is of interest is that the CPC did vote to advance the application, at 58 Main Street, which is to conserve the facade of the building, the Folger Block building, which is a privately owned building. And it's my understanding that the CPC, I mean, I think that's, I don't know if there's been others, but that to me seems precedent setting that
Yeah.
if you have a building that is a historic resource. I don't know, I would encourage people to apply to the CPC and see what happens.
Yeah. I think
It'd
there
be
was
interesting
an
to see.
argument because that building is semi-public
Yeah,
as far as its spaces go. That was the catalyst to move it forward, kind of like the same concept of why our CPC has always given money to our religious institutions.
so like
Because of
Halpine
that.
and things like
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
so.
Well,
Yeah,
thrift shop, I mean, stuff like that.
Right.
501c3s.
Right, but outside of because
Part of
there are
it, yeah.
some CPCs, my understanding in the Commonwealth, and correct me if I'm wrong, that
Oh.
won't give them to churches.
Yeah,
Oh,
But we've done the complete opposite because we consider them part of our community.
yeah,
That's what makes, again, the Nantucket
that's why
factor.
we're special. Paul.
We are.
But I think, Mary, I think you bring up a good point that, even if you're not sure about the idea or not, it's definitely worth a shot. And then at least you can get more guidance. And then even if you have an idea and it doesn't go there, you might be able to find a different place. So I mean, I think that's the overall thought is like, hey, we have a couple ideas, we can throw them out there. Maybe they're not gonna get funded, but at least,
Yeah.
It's on people's radar, I guess.
Waiting to think about all the options.
Mhm.
All right, well, we can move on to the approval of the October minutes. Anyone would like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the October meeting.
Second,
Seconded.
Thank you. On your motion, George,
yes.
Abby, Nikki,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Abby?
Aye.
Thank you. I as well.
And I will get them on the website. I know I've been remiss in doing that, but I will do that.
Is there?
Oh, yeah, if you need me, I don't know if you have
I'll
a
confirm
PDF.
with you what I need.
Yeah, the PDFs or not. I
Is
did
there
have
any
one
other
more thing.
business?
Yes, I sent the goals doc, but, Polly, I don't know if you have it or if you want me to share.
Actually, I think I do have it.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
Yeah, so I just thought, there's not a ton of changes because we reviewed it last month, but like, there were a couple of things I just thought quickly we could talk about.
Had so many documents open. You guys over here. And,
Here we go. So the first one, I think we're all aware, Holly, you did the application. I put the 15th, it's actually the 13th, so I updated that. we said we're kind of still waiting for feedback after we presented to, CPC.
It sounds like they're gonna be moving forward to the, warrant.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just update that. I don't think we have had any tax credits. The building with Nantucket in mind, I would put here, if we, just what we talked about, that maybe we'll think about seeing if we submit that as a project for, the community fund. And then, education, there was that workshop, it was yesterday, I know Rita was there and I was there. They also had it today at 9:30. Obviously, we are here, but they're recording it, so if you guys want to watch the recording, you can. I also sent out this morning the slides, and I also sent out the slides from the last mass deconstruction workshop that was on October 25th.
Thank you for that.
Oh, no problem. That is, my job is training champ captain. So, so those slides are there if you guys need them. And like I said, if you want to watch the video for the conflict of interest workshop, the open meeting law and conflict.
And the open meeting law and conflict of interest workshop, it's not a recommendation, you need to,
It's
as a
required,
commissioner,
yeah,
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So,
Are they repeating the one that they did today, tomorrow?
no, they did it yesterday. They did it last night, but you can watch it because they recorded this morning's at 9:30.
I thought I had two choices, today and tomorrow, but.
No, it was yesterday and
Yesterday.
today. I know, it was I felt like the times weren't great,
No.
which.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, great, they have it in the middle of our meeting,
Okay, but it'll come up. so
but it will be on video, so you guys can watch it. I did
I registered
also,
for it until I realized we had
yeah,
a overlap.
yeah, exactly. But, in the slides, it's pretty close to the slides, so, you know, you can review the slides to get the content. And so those are the just couple of things. And then, I guess when we were talking about disaster resiliency conservation workshop, that was kind of what we already talked about. So those are probably the only things that I would just say, just to call your attention to. So I'm just gonna clean up a couple of those things. I can send it out with the meeting minutes from today to you guys later.
Great.
That's it. Any questions?
Unless there are any other items anyone wants to bring up, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Here a second.
Second.
On your motion, Rita.
Aye.
George, Abby,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
Tom.
No, he left.
Oh, we almost got him for the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
I as well. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye,
And
guys.
that concludes our meeting.
Great.